Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, brothers and sisters. It is another edition of Hard Talk. I am joined by beloved guests, um, Brother Abi and Sister Fatima. Assalamu alaikum, brother and sister. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Very well, thank you.
Alhamdulillah. And sister, how are you? Well, I think she's just connecting, but alhamdulillah, we are doing an episode of Hard Talk. It will be on mental health in marriage and relationships. We did have an episode last week where we did cover on it, so if you didn't get a chance to watch it, please go ahead and watch it. And it sort of gave us an introduction to our beloved brother Abi, who was the first time joining us here on CovFF, Friendly Muslim and Consider This. Again, brother, just I think Sister Fatima is just sort of rejoining the stream. If you just want
No problem at
to
all.
give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, and
Alhamdulillah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
right,
Salam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Hope you're all well. Hope you're all good. And whoever's watching us, may Allah grant you greatness in listening and inshallah ta'ala in understanding exactly what we are about to take on, inshallah ta'ala. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Abdul Rab Ahmad Anwari. Everyone knows me as Abi. Um, I reside in Leicester and alhamdulillah take a great passion and interest in mental health, and positivity is my real pure passion, and I like to spread the beautiful word of positivity and Allah's words and Allah's beauty, inshallah ta'ala. And I hope we can actually assist a lot of people and guide a lot of people, inshallah, today with our words, inshallah ta'ala. Sister Fatima, all yours. The floor is yours,
Assalamualaikum,
Sister
guys.
Fatima.
Thank you. Sorry for my popping in and out. All of a sudden, I couldn't hear anyone speaking. But luckily, alhamdulillah, it's all working now. So, assalamu alaikum, guys. My name is Fatma. I'm a British Pakistani. I am first full generation here in England. And it is my passion to discuss South Asian based issues because I believe like we're very significant, very particular group of people. And I pursued my executive life. I'm an executive in the construction industry. But as time has gone along, I've realized my meaning and pursuit is really to have open discussions and try to get our people out into the arena to talk about, taboo subjects. I really believe we're suffering and we're lagging behind because we ignore that. So whereas I'm still working in construction, my true passion is now this.
Subhanallah. Fantastic. Brother Friendly?
so we had this topic that we wanted to discuss: mental health in marriage and relationships. And again, Assalamu alaikum to all the brothers and sisters that are filtering in and joining us. What in particular, Brother Abi, did you want to discuss about this topic? And sort of just if you want to give us a sort of outline of how you want to approach the topic itself.
Absolutely. Look, we are British Asian, British Muslim, and we have a background. We have an ancestry that comes from a different heritage, different countries, different, understandings, different traditions. And we obviously come into this country with an understanding of trying to bring our traditions into this country. And a lot of the time, and the majority of the time, it just doesn't work because we have this, what can I say, stronghold and belief system that this is how it should be, this is what it should be. And, it's quite difficult for us as British Asians, married relationships, to have such an open understanding because our traditions don't allow us to, or our ancestors don't allow us to, because there's such a strong hold on our belief system. And I don't know, Sister Fatima, if you can maybe understand what I'm trying to say, is I'm married, you've been married, if I'm right,
Yep.
And during our marriages, we obviously have expectations. And brother Friendly, I don't know if you're married, but if you are, you'll actually maybe understand where I'm coming from. We have a belief system as to what our expectations are, what we expect, what our partners expect, and it just doesn't work out the way we want it to or we expect it to. And it's it's quite difficult, brother, for people to, whoever is obviously married or in a relationship. What can I
So,
say?
so just to
Go for
go
it,
back,
sister.
just to go back to your earlier points, because I think you've mentioned quite a lot of different umbrella terms there. So
Yes,
what strikes me the most and what I think is most relevant is that there is a big confusion between what is tradition and what is culture. We might
very much
be
so.
we might be verbally aware of it, but when it comes to actively putting things in place, Islam as a tradition in itself is not carried through purely. It is mixed up with cultural issues, stigmas, and on dogmas, etc. And then people become bogged down within that. I know we're
And
not
we,
specifically only discussing Muslims because there's people in the
no, we're
community
not.
that are
We're not.
outside of
I
Islam,
just brought,
but they
I
suffer.
just brought that up. Yeah,
They suffer with the same thing. You know,
very
their
much so.
culture in itself is such a burden on the individual, when actually if we were to, for us in particular, if we were to live through our Islamic tradition, we would have a lot less social issues and mental health issues.
Very much so. I understand. Now, looking into marriages and the mental health issues within marriage, we can see very clearly that there is a major change that is taking place within marriages that has already been established, and new marriages that are taking place. And if I'm wrong, you can correct me. Please do so. You can stop me at any time. I see it a lot of the times where there are conflicts between the husband and wife as to who's right, who's wrong, who has control, who doesn't have control. And then one of the powers of be within the two tends to take over the relationship and start to dictate exactly how they would like this marriage to continue, or how they want their life to be, or the independence, the liberalism comes into play. So there's a lot of things that actually take place. Um, what are your thoughts, Sister Fatima,
So
on this?
uh, this hyperactivity on social liberalism, that's been going on for at least 40 years now, and
Yeah,
the way they trickle these social changes into society is over the course of 3 or 4 generations, so you don't even really know it's hitting you. The interesting thing about this is, you know, I was listening to a lecture the other day about sometimes a form of narcissism and coercion is an extreme form of empathy. When you over empathize with an individual and don't teach them accountability, essentially what you do is you breed narcissism within that individual.
sure.
And with all the other parts we've got on society, with the sexual liberation and all sorts of other things going on, people have lost the entity of control. We're
Very
infighting.
much so.
We don't have a structural element we strive towards, because, for example, as Muslims, we live in a non-Muslim country. There's only so much structure we can implement in there that belongs in our homes. Yet our schooling, our work, our everything is around these social liberated systems. And I think it does take a very strong-minded set of parents, for example, to ensure that their children are appropriately accountable. We don't have accountability in the world anymore. It's a rarity for somebody to sit down and say, well, actually, you know what? I could be being unreasonable then. Because this constant fear of being taken advantage of, it's in your films, it's in your music, it's everywhere you go. It's you're going to get advantage taken out of you. So beat them to the crunch. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, marriage has been put in this area of competition. You compete with people at work, you compete with people in an appropriate environment you've created competition with. We need to remove the element of liberalism and competition outside of the marriage, and people not having the appropriate knowledge in the first place to choose the correct partner for themselves.
Sure.
I believe that's the foundational aspect right there, because once you've got that done, you can't avoid mental health issues in a marriage. It actually
Absolutely
frightens me
not.
how quickly people are running away from marriage because somebody's having a
Absolutely.
hard time in it. If you're planning on spending 40 plus years with someone, they're going to have a breakdown at some point, and so are you.
Very much so. Absolutely.
So where
And,
is the compassion for others?
no, it becomes a real struggle um, within the marriage where sometimes, and I think where, let's say, for example, a husband and wife are working and the individuals become very independent um, to each other or from each other, and they tend to continue with their separate private lives, and they feel as if whatever we were before marriage, we can continue with that way after marriage. And Assalamu alaikum, sister. I don't know if you did you miss that.
I
I was
missed the
saying
first little part, but please
no, that's fine.
carry on. I'll
I,
join the
I,
flow.
that's fine. That's fine. I was saying that in marriages, especially when people are, let's say, for example, in this day and age, dating, and they show a different face when they're dating. And in that dating mood and mode, they show that they are very affectionate, very loving, and very into you, and very understanding, and so on and so forth. And then when the marriage takes place between the two people, the two individuals, they feel as if that life that they had is fine. They can continue with that life even after marriage. And I think this is where the whole world changes, is when you're dating and when you're in a relationship, it's different. And when you are married, it changes. Automatically it changes because the expectations change. And I think that is maybe a start of where the conflict starts between the two individuals. And then when noises are made from the individuals for the individuals, that's when the actual issues start getting worse and worse and worse. And then maybe a guy, let's take me for example. Let's say, for example, I was a quite an egoistic person, and I was an arrogant person, and I would never understand what my wife was trying to say, or even my wife was trying to explain to me. And I kept on saying to her, no, this is the way, you're wrong. That's what I see happening in a lot of marriages. And there's a reason I say that, is because I've actually been involved in helping a lot of people, and this is one of the most common situations that a lot of marriages end up in, where they start really nice, they start loving each other, showing each other affection, and then when that big day comes and that marriage kicks in, the whole world changes, because now expectations change from each other. Uh, where are you going? Why are you dressed like this? Why are you going here? Why didn't you tell me? When are you coming back? All these things start to kick in, and I think these things start causing problems and conflict, which automatically then goes into a mental health state,
I think
and it starts causing problems.
fundamentally, the image of marriage has not been something that's been promoted in the world. What's been promoted in the world is the dating part. what's been promoted in the world is the fun part when you go on holiday or when you have a conflict with your in-laws and your husband or your wife, they stand up in front of their own parents for you and all that really big dramatic movie stuff. That's what's been promoted in the world. Nobody wants to sit down and watch a 2.5 hour movie about a mundane everyday marriage. But
Absolutely.
unfortunately, because we glamorize everything, the everyday fundamentals go amiss.
Yes.
And people are too afraid to say anything. I mean, I know plenty of men, they're afraid to say to women these days, like, will you be a homemaker? Will you look after the home? Because I
Absolutely.
predominantly, they're
Yes.
frightened to ask,
Yes.
and
Very much.
women, I'd like to make a point about women specifically because I feel like they do need their own, because women's mentality is a whole other spectrum on planet, the way they think. And they truly believe that if they surrender to certain things, that one brick, before they know it, will turn into a mountain they don't recognize. And they're afraid that they'll lose themselves within the surrender to their husband. When in fact, we should be scanning the man that's appropriate to surrender to and go ahead and do that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
I
we need to
think.
stop
Yeah.
glamorizing everything in the world. Life is not glamorous, guys. You can I used to be a different type of content creator. This is what I'm doing for the day and all that. When you see those people waking up in their lovely beds, making their lovely coffee, just imagine setting up a stand and a ring light and a mic all before you take that action. There's nothing glamorous about it. You just get snippets of
Absolutely.
things. And the
Yes.
same things with shows and films. I mean, I've got a 15-year-old sister, and she was watching a particular
MashaAllah.
show and it's rated 15. And personally, I would not rate that 15. But we are almost out of control what they're exposed to. So everybody's out
Yes.
in this world looking for a fantasy. And when we're looking for that fantasy, our mental health suffers because all we see is disappointment and failure.
Absolutely. So, sister, let me ask you, where do you think mental health starts in a relationship? What do you think triggers it, and what do you think plants that seed for a person or an individual in a relationship to get into that state of mental health?
See, this is where I think mental health is an illusion. Mental health is not a switch on, switch off. We are born a certain way. We are then socialized or natured or nurtured, however you wish to see. I think life plays
Yeah.
both play a role. And then you are constantly with yourself. You are always in your state of mental health. How much you're willing to look into that in the mirror and not look away when it gets ugly, when you
Yes.
when you see parts of yourself you dislike, when you say, actually, you know what, I am a jealous person, I am a paranoid person, when you can say those things truly to yourself, mental health doesn't start and end. It's always with you. It's about the level you're willing to meet it at. The
Right.
more you've met yourself on that personal level, and you're willing to say, you know what, this and this needs working on, and I'm going to go out of my way to ensure I'm working on that, and I'm going to
Sure.
communicate that with my loved ones. That, guys, say for example, I mean, this is just off the top of my head, but say somebody has a particular issue with anger and they're working on it. Now, if you were to approach your loved ones and say, guys, I know I've got this problem, we all know it,
Yes.
and I'm working on it. And when it happens, just grab me or just poke me and let me know, and I can grab myself. That's not my mental health turning on and off. That's me having control of my mental health.
Yes. Okay.
And then when you are at this or a level of self-awareness, you are then able to recognize that in others. Whereas if you aren't self-aware, you're going for the same person that's equally as unaware as you, and you're putting flowers on your life, saying this is going to be amazing, we're going to travel 8 times a year and we're going to do this. Well, in an average lifestyle, you're going to face so many problems on a monthly basis
Yes.
that if your mental health, your self accountability is not in order, you are inevitably going to make the other person's life hard. And that should be a priority, that we don't want to make other people's lives hard with our internal struggles.
Yes. And what do you think triggers it between two people? What do you think actually, it's what do you think? Yeah, what
So
words do you think triggers this kind of mode, or the mental health of of an individual to actually get triggered in a bad way, not a good way?
see, mental health is very individual. Some people have had childhood traumas to do with their mother, other people father, other people, something, they lost someone, they went through something. So essentially, you have to come to an understanding in your marriage that when something uncomfortable rises, we need to sit down and talk about it, even though we're both shaking with apprehension and we don't want to do it. I don't think there is buzzwords that are, yes, this triggers people and this doesn't. We can generalize amongst men and women because we know
Yes,
we have certain things as men and women. If you tell a woman she doesn't look good at a certain time, she could break down in a million pieces. But is that,
absolutely.
but I wouldn't classify that as triggering someone's mental health. I think mental
Yes,
health is so much more deeper than that. How
very
do you
much so.
know if a particular individual is used to having undying support and no criticism from their mother? As soon as
Yes,
their wife criticizes them on one thing, there is a bomb off in that house.
yes, very much so. I
So
said something
knowing your
last week.
partner, yeah.
Yes, I said something last week. Sorry, Sister Fatima. I said something last week in the podcast, about how an individual is nurtured in one household and becomes accustomed to that way. And then when a second individual comes into that individual's life, you think that whatever the other person is doing that is different to yours is absolutely wrong.
It always an attack.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it becomes an attack on an individual. And I see that then creates this small little gap between the two individuals, and that gap starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger,
It's
and that it becomes a
interesting.
rift.
It's interesting you bring this up because I'm an I'm an advocate for a couple of things within our South Asian community that a lot of people
Yes,
dislike. And one of them I'm an advocate of is let your children out into the world. Let them become independent. Let them meet all shades and colors of people, all mindsets, all temperaments, because they are going to have to learn how to adapt.
yes,
And
yes.
if you
I agree with that.
mollycoddle them because you're like, well, what's the point of them paying rent when there's a mortgage? Excuse me, do you remember your great grandfather's mortgage payments? No, you don't.
No, you don't. Yeah,
So they are not
absolutely.
as relevant as we like to make
Yes,
it. The experience you get when you go out there and you have to rent yourself, you have to speak to the landlord, you have to negotiate your own bills. Those are
yes,
character building traits that will
yes.
stop people from becoming so easily broken down with a little bit of wind hits them and they're on the
Yeah.
floor.
So if I'm correct, sister, we are protecting our children too much,
Yeah, see,
to such an
there's a
extent.
difference. It depends
Yeah,
how
no,
you're
no.
protecting them. See, the
Yes,
South Asian community, we're still very juvenile. India and Pakistan itself didn't get its independence until about 74, 75 years ago. So our
yes,
mentality and our idea behind survival and protection is imminently, extremely different to the West. And
yes,
you can see now we're moving away from, you don't have to worry about the roof over your head, especially when your
yes,
immigrants have come over to the West. Our priorities and our education hasn't advanced. We stayed there.
yes,
And that's what this generation and conversations like these, they call, our society is begging for us to bring some normality. You know, there's so many kids out there, especially Asian kids. They get told every single day when they wake up, you're absolutely perfect and there's nothing wrong with you. And anybody that criticizes you, it's their fault. For me, that's the biggest injustice you could do to a child that has to be an
yes,
adult on this earth without you one day.
yes. Absolutely. Because that in itself, if I'm correct, can cause a major conflict, um, and it can cause a conflict between that child and another child if they can't communicate on that level.
How fascinating is that? If you to create an image and you have parents, their children in front of them, and as the
Yes,
parents get older and move away, these children are having conflict. And
absolutely correct.
that is the exact opposite thing we should be running from. We should be telling our young adults that if you receive feedback from someone, you should be intelligent enough to take it in and decide which parts of that you need to work on.
Absolutely.
We point
I,
too many fingers, and
yes,
marriages are becoming hell rather than the heaven they should be.
absolutely. And this understanding is not immediate. It comes to you as an individual over time, but you must open this up
But
first
that's why I
and
say,
open your
let your
ears.
kids out. Let them out. Let
Absolutely,
them experience the
absolutely.
world.
I,
When people say,
I
oh
totally
no,
agree with you.
they'll go to university and they'll do this and do, well, they'll meet people that don't wash the dishes the same way you do. They'll meet people that do
Yes,
laundry differently.
yes,
Maybe they'll find a better solution in that
yes.
exposure out of what they've had at home. And you
Very
create
much so.
worldly mindset, more patient
Very much
individuals,
so.
self-aware.
Yes,
But we
yes,
don't promote self-awareness in the South Asian community. we
yes.
we
Very much
promote
so.
being right. If you are right, that's it, you're finished.
Yes. Do you know
I
this?
just sorry, brothers and sisters. I just wanted
Yes,
to interject because I got some questions myself
yes.
that I wanted to put to you, and also we had
Please.
some in the comments. So I'll highlight the first question, which was earlier on in the stream from one of our brothers. Question one: if a Muslim have a mental problem and for his husband, Iman is low, is weak, what to do? So that was the question posed there. Any
Right.
suggestions on
Okay.
that?
Well, look. Firstly, there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. They're two different things. So we need to understand that first. Secondly, the person has said that their iman is low. Now, firstly, are they single? Are they married? Are they within a family unit? And if they are able to say that their iman is low, what is to say that they cannot help themselves in bringing their iman back up again? Sometimes we automatically assume that we need help. And the one help that we tend to shy away from when our iman is low is from Allah. And the first thing I would always say to anybody who feels that their iman is low, and this is something, if I am correct, that our Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has explained, that if at any point in your life that you feel that you are straying away from your deen, from your path, and you are feeling weak, refer back to the Quran and the Sunnah. And this will guide you, inshallah ta'ala, back onto the path. And this is something that I strongly believe in.
Brother, is it possible to bring the question back up again?
Yep.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
I would just like, are you finished, brother? Are you,
Yes,
sorry, I
yes,
didn't mean.
absolutely. Please carry on.
So I would agree with him about that, but a mental problem, yeah, that definitely needs to be understood a little bit clearly. Is that
Yeah.
a hiccup or a problem you're having with inside of yourself, or is it a diagnosed issue? Because I think when
Yes.
it comes to Iman, this is just my personal view, guys. Allah subhanahu wa
Please.
ta'ala, from the readings that I have done, has accounted for every single state of mind. It's
Very much so.
important to understand that if you have low iman, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't
Yes.
mean, actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written, and so many hadiths have actively investigated this point of mental health. And when people say, come back to the Quran and Sunnah, I would say that we are in a day and age now where you can literally Google your exact problem and the hadith will come up. You can
Yes.
Google your exact problem, and there'll be about 4 lectures of it on YouTube. So
Yes.
I can understand from someone who suffered from this myself. Coming back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when your iman is low, you feel very guilty and you feel like a sinner. You feel like there's something wrong with you because you can't grasp this big, beautiful thing that's been given, and
Yes.
you feel like an ingrate. So I would take that out of it, and I'll just know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not judging you for your state of mind, He's judging you for
Sure.
how you deal with your state of mind. And
Yes.
we've got endless amount of resources. So, and everybody ebbs and flows in Iman. Please don't feel like you're the biggest criminal because you're having a
No.
moment
Yeah.
of low Iman.
Absolutely. Well said and well put.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. And
I agree with you.
my question
Yes.
was when we were talking about, sort of having these conversations as a couple between sort of support, problem solving, and what is the reaction to
Yeah.
criticism, etc. Is that something that a conversation that should take place before marriage, when you're having that conversation, or is it the case that these conversations aren't happening, and then it's at the actual point of when you're actually within the marriage, and that's where the problems start?
Sister,
I
you
would
go for
say,
you go
yeah,
first.
you
You go
could
first.
see me edging towards answering it. I couldn't keep my mouth closed. Now, I love that you asked that question because fundamentally, we are not asking the right questions in our investigations before we get married. We are running away with the lust. We are getting very excited that we found someone that
Yes.
mutually thinks of us in the same way. And that is giving us all the dopamine that is required for us to not think clearly about anything else. Absolutely, these things should be discussed. And that's why we have so much representation in our religion of having your parents there with you.
Yeah.
And it's seen as such a
Absolutely.
big no-no because they've already passed a certain moral line. That's why they don't want their parents involved.
Yes.
Stay
Very
behind the
much so.
moral line so you can have your parents there chaperoning that. Because questions
Yes.
such as, was there a recent disappointment or a loss that you had in your life? How did you deal with it? What would you require from somebody else that would be around you when something traumatic happens? What
Yes.
is it that
Yes.
you're looking for? And to be able to articulate that myself, like, I saw this one video about this woman. She constantly hid herself from her partner before marriage, as in she hid her natural personality. She's actually very clingy. She liked to be on the phone all the time, but because she wanted to keep a certain image, she stayed that way. After the marriage, it all blows up because she feels unloved.
Sure.
Well, who is
Wow.
teaching these people to communicate these things and to have
Very much so.
the self-confidence enough to be yourself? So yeah, definitely
Yes.
before, brother.
That's
The-
okay. I want to part onto that then. So then, with the parents, sometimes from our culture, our parents aren't as understanding when it comes to emotional support growing up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the boy of the family, the first son has to be very strong, very stoic, essentially. And so
Yes.
it's not necessarily catered to about those down days, how they feel the pressure, because we don't show it. I've got
Yeah.
a very good brother of mine, and you're not going to catch him on a bad day, because they don't exist. But I know he's gone through. Privately,
Yes.
he may speak to me, or we might have those conversations. But other than
Yes.
that, parents, families, siblings aren't going to know that he may have a struggle. So having those conversations in front of parents, and again, even daughters, because you're
Yes.
presenting the daughter. Oh, she's got a degree. She's this type of, because there's a fear also. There's no
Yes.
chinks in the armor here. This is a fine product,
Absolutely.
that we are
Absolutely.
presenting here. Are
Yes.
we able to have those conversations in front of our parents also?
well,
That's
this
another thing I'd want to touch on.
this is why I
Can I?
believe we need to
Go ahead.
try and work on as a community. It's our job to
Yes.
work on this because with
Yes.
all the fear and all the barriers that have been put around us, bravery and knowledge in our deen will provide us with everything we need. We we
Yes.
do need to be able to break these barriers, and I say this as someone that I already did the marriage the first time round in the way that I'm describing. That wasn't the most intelligent of ways, and I've had to come away from that and alter my own behavior. So we need to take accountability for ourselves. Even if you
Yes.
feel the victim in your scenario, if you're unable to communicate well, you need to work on that. That's an individual's responsibility. And if your
Yes.
parents have that kind of blockade on you, then it's your decision as an individual. Me personally, I would have to decide between, is this a brick wall I'm running into with no result? And do I channel my energy elsewhere into my partner? But you are right. Not all parents are as approachable
No,
as I might have made
they're
out.
not. And brother, you are right that as South Asian, Pakistani, Muslim, Indian, or a culture that is out of this country or comes from out of this country, we 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 tend to find it very, very difficult to stand up or speak to our parents with regards to things that are issues like this. And their expectations of children and sons and daughters are very much of an old traditional type. I'm not saying that it's wrong, and I'm not saying that it's right. It needs to be addressed, it needs to be understood, where parents that came from the other abroad countries, and if you understand where I'm coming from here, they came here firstly to give their children and their families a better life. That was the assumption. But when they came here to give their children a better life, better education. Some of them gave it to them, but unfortunately also brought that strict culture with them, where they still controlled the children in such a way that it was always difficult to be able to speak to their father or their mother, and it was always difficult to move forward. And even if they got married, it would be, you're marrying my brother's daughter, or you're marrying your mother's brother's daughter, or your mother's sister's daughter, and that's it, finished. And if you say
And it's
one
clever
word,
because it's a tactic to keep you emotionally and financially intertwined.
and in control. Yes,
But that's what it is. But when
yes,
you've got someone's physical and financials under your control,
yes,
well, they're your
yes,
puppet now. And
very much so. Now
and
you
this
see them, yeah, them parents, they do still exist, brother. They do still exist, but a lot of the parents now have started to slowly change and start to understand that, you know what, this is not Pakistan or not India or not Bangladesh, or not a country that we used to come from or our ancestors came from. We've come to a country where the culture is totally different. We understand that we would like our culture to remain in a strong format, but the way we address things, the way we talk to our children may need to slightly change. And I think this is where Sister tries in her videos as well, and I respect that, is that she tries to bring it across that, guys, we can't continue like this. We have to bring slight changes into our ways so that
and
we have a better understanding.
so can I just jump onto that before you move on to the
Please,
next point?
please, please, please. Yeah.
Now, this is why in my videos, I do try to do a two-prong approach, because trying
Yes.
to get a certain generation of elders to completely change their mindset, that's an extremely difficult task. I mean, if I say to you, brother, go and follow a diet for 4 weeks straight, no cheat days, nothing, the likelihood of us being able to commit to that is low, let alone changing somebody else's whole entire mindset. So
Absolutely.
so I'm a big promoter of, especially if you're a generation that's been born in a Western country, we have been given the luxury of articulation. We've been given the luxury of education. Why are we
Yes.
not using that to articulate our feelings and our concerns to our previous generation in a way where we can bridge that generational gap? We shouldn't be leaving them behind. In very extreme circumstances, you might have to. But generally
Yeah.
speaking, children and parents, they love each other. They want to stay together. They want that link there. So we should be
Absolutely.
working on that. Not parents, you come this way, kids, you come this way. We have to meet in the middle.
Yeah. And please remember, brother, and the people who are listening to this podcast, we are not in any way, shape, or form telling anybody to break any Islamic rule or in any way, shape, or form. What we are trying to allow people to understand here is that the changes that each individual needs to make slightly towards a better understanding of their children so that they can actually assist in helping moving their lives forward and their own lives as well.
Yeah, with
Because,
you. The goal is
yes,
to take everybody with you. You know,
absolutely.
they create such they create such animosity that you, unfortunately, it is a reality. Some people cannot take their parents with them, and what an
Yes.
unfortunate ending that is.
It is an unfortunate situation where sometimes, things like this do take place, and it ends up in such a state where the child and the parent can't hack each other anymore, and one of them has to leave. And in most cases, it's the child being either thrown out the house or asked to leave, or the child packs his bags and leaves.
And leaves
And
and just goes
and
no contact.
this is such a difficult situation to be in, that it happens in that way, brother.
These
And
situations, they warm up to a boil. They don't all of a sudden come
yeah,
home and it's boiling over. They are
yeah,
giving you, that situation is giving you signs and signals probably for 10 years before that happened. But people
absolutely.
are just not, and this is where we cut a fine line, because we throw the word around oppression like it's happening everywhere. But if we are
Yes,
not intelligent enough to articulate our own selves,
yes,
everything will feel like oppression.
yeah. And remember, there is a way of talking. There is a way of speaking. I think I was very fortunate, alhamdulillah, that both my parents, my father and my mother, we could actually speak to openly. You know, and when I say that, I could approach my mother even today and say to her, "Ma, this, and this." And you know what? Because I'm asking her such a question, the first thing my mother would do is smile and go red, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know what? She'll start to speak to me in return. And that is, there's always, and I please, I push this as much as possible, is that whenever you are discussing certain things, always, always, always try and keep that respect between the two, parents and children. Always speak with
Alhamdulillah.
pure respect,
Yeah,
because,
absolutely. And guys,
because,
this is a guidance and a
yes,
rule, a law that's been given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
absolutely.
No matter
If we
how
can't show,
frustrated you might be, you find a
absolutely.
way to speak gently with your parents.
If we can't even show that respect to our parents, how do they even understand or try to understand where we're coming from? Because it's like, I call it the woodpecker effect. And I call this the woodpecker effect because that effect, it takes time for people to start opening up and to start understanding. And I call it the woodpecker effect because the bark on a tree, the first layer, it takes a woodpecker a minimum of 2 weeks to even make that circle just with the bark. And that's by pecking and going, coming back, pecking, going and coming back. And then to build a house, it can take anything up to 1 year or 2 years just to build a house in the tree. So it takes time to speak, and always, always, always keep that respect with your parents. Never, ever disrespect your parents. Remember, your parents don't understand everything that you're going through, and they find it very difficult to try and understand, even if you're trying to be open with them. They find it very difficult because they don't come from that era. They come from an era of tabooism where everything was taboo, and they don't understand that. So we must, as children, firstly, respect that and appreciate that. And you know what? Slowly but surely, they will slowly come around and start talking to you in a way where you might understand and they might understand. But always keep that respect between the
And
two.
keep trying, keep going, because
Yes,
sometimes some topics can be extremely uncomfortable for either party, but the love for each other ends up rising above that. Just always keep trying with your parents. Never give up on your parents, because even though we might think they're from a previous generation, they carry a wealth of knowledge that when you get to another part of your life, you will be knocking their door down saying, help me, because they have experienced things in life that you can't even fathom yet. And that goes
yes,
for people, even for us, brother. Our
absolutely.
parents are still going to be more experienced than us, even when we
Very
get to
much
see.
so. No,
So
it's true. Absolutely.
finding
I
that
think there's a
balance.
question. There's a
Okay.
question
Yep.
on the screen here.
There is a question loaded up from Shanaz. If parents are, we're presuming, emotionally understanding, but your spouse is not emotionally understanding, especially after your parents speak to your spouse, what do you do?
That's a very interesting question. And sister, would you like to answer, or would you like to try?
Yes, I think it's, I'm not, I don't shy of these things. I
Good.
think
Okay.
there's
Fantastic.
no point trying to be overly political about it, because people are
Yeah.
clearly coming with quite deep rooted issues in their house. And I
Very much
think
so.
fundamentally, a main thing to understand is if your partner is unwilling to fulfill a need of yours, that is pretty much all the answer you need. Now, should our spouse be fulfilling every single ounce of our emotional desire need? Absolutely not. That's not what that person is there for. They're not there to carry you through life. And emotional understanding is something that is built over a long time, a lot of scenarios, and a lot of communication. But being a woman, because this is a woman asking this, when men
Yes.
shut down emotionally, fundamentally, they've already made that decision to not understand you. And I hate to sound hopeless, but I think it's important we're honest with our people. Brother, you're a man, and you're married, alhamdulillah, and maybe
Alhamdulillah.
you can have some feedback on what I'm saying. If a man is emotionally closed to understand you, in my opinion, he's made the decision that that door is shut.
Yeah. I totally agree with you.
And
Um,
you're barking up the wrong tree. You need to find your emotional needs from him in another way and
yeah.
fulfill. Because if your parents are understanding, Allahu Akbar, ring your parents every day and make the most of them.
Yes. Very much so. I agree with you totally. Look, like you said earlier, I'm also male, but I've never been closed off. I never will be. Because for me, I grew up in a very open and emotional family. And I could never switch off to my spouse, my children. Um, that's the last thing I would ever do as a man, or even as a
It's
husband, or
probably
as
why
even
you're
as a
still
father.
married.
Hey,
It's probably why you're still married.
Subhanallah. And you know
Alhamdulillah.
what? I would never, ever, ever do that, because I find that as a man, as a husband, as a father, it is the most important thing for you to be who you are and be as emotionally understanding as you can be with your wife, with your children, be it a boy, be it a girl. It doesn't matter. I come from Pathan blood, so we are brought up in a very different, you know, environment. But subhanallah, my father was absolutely beautiful in showing and teaching us this emotion and understanding. And you know what? Sometimes it can take time. It doesn't come overnight for someone to understand an individual. It takes time. Like I
And
always
and
say,
what do and what do we
we
mean
come
by
with
emotional
expectations.
understanding?
Yeah, we come with expectations. When we get involved with a human being, another human being, and we bring them into our life, we have this expectation. And this expectation is and always will be, and you can correct me, sister, if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. We as individuals, as men or women, come into this relationship with this great expectation. If I give all the love in the world to this one individual, I'm going to get 101% love right back. And guess what? It's never the case, and it will never happen. You're
Yeah.
very, very lucky, subhanallah, if you are in that situation. And may Allah keep it going for you with pure strength. But
Ameen.
when it comes to the majority of individuals, where your expectations are, if I will gift my wife something nice, I will give my daughter something nice. And you know what? When it's a special day or a day where you expect something in return, it doesn't happen the way you would like it or want it to happen. And I always say this, and if you go back to my videos on TikTok, you will also understand from it that there is a major difference between want and is. Major difference.
Yeah, see,
What we want,
I'm glad
what
you
we
said
want.
that. That's what
What,
that's sorry.
no, please interject. Go on, carry on.
That's what strikes me about the emotionally understanding.
Yes,
Ladies, to whoever the ladies are that are listening to this, please stop trying to feminize your women. Stop trying to make them as emotionally available as you are. That is not how they're built. And there's another thing I want to say about this question, and then I'll be quiet.
fantastic.
Please
Go on.
stop bringing your parents into your marriage. You're essentially treating your husband like a child again. And that is really going to shut him down. I think
Yeah.
the understanding on how to nurture masculinity and how to nurture femininity, but we don't need to become one another. So we need to assess, what does that emotional understanding mean? Are you looking for him to be your mom and dad again? Or is it
Yeah.
something a lot deeper than that?
Now, you obviously are listening to my voice on your side. Do I sound loud?
No, you sound I've
Okay.
got it at a good
Now,
volume.
because of my bloodline and because of my background, my voice is automatically loud. So when I speak amongst people or even in my own home, sometimes I will get told, "Why are you shouting?" But I'm not. But I'm not. Do you understand? It's
Yeah,
just when I'm a very passionate person, a very romantic person, a very emotionally understanding person, but I didn't become that, or I wasn't that in the first instance. I became that, and I had to, because as an individual, you have to understand the environment that you're in, and you have to learn. And I did learn, and you know what? It's not a simple task,
no.
because we as men in very different households are taught to be men. You know, if you are not this mega man who earns millions, and if you're not, your body's not a good solid body, then you're not a man. You're a waste of time. And you know what? When you go into a marriage with them feelings, you get told that from your spouse, because you're
Yeah,
showing exactly what they're telling you. Do you understand?
yeah,
So
definitely.
you mustn't do that. This is why it's so important to also try and be attached to your parents, so that you can possibly try and speak to them with respect, and always, you know, respect them, love them, so that you allow them, and they allow you to speak to each other openly as possible, so that you
Yeah.
can understand each other, because
And
it's so important in this day and age.
so, sorry, this sister from the question, she's on my mind. So I think a fundamental factor to this is to learn how to articulate your feelings properly without blaming, without using the tone or the notion of blame. Because women tend to be very hyper emotional creatures. And if you meet men in your hyper emotional state where you have no logic about you and you're just splurting out all these words and hands are flying around, inevitably their brain kind of shuts off. So if you're going to approach a man that is emotionally unavailable, I would sit with yourself. I personally would sit down and write a letter to myself about everything I want to say, and then I would read it. And I would read it as someone, as if I was that person that received that letter. And if there's
Yes,
any accusatory tones in there, any blaming, any, there no sense of accountability, then it's going to be impossible for you to begin that conversation. But best of
very
luck.
much. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah ta'ala. Sister Shenaz, good luck. And inshallah ta'ala, like the sister said, please stay as calm as possible. And like she said as well, that sometimes, when a person has decided that they're going to emotionally shut themselves down or close themselves off, you need to approach them with, what can I say, as if
See,
there's something fragile.
oh,
Uh,
absolutely. You know what?
Yeah,
That is such a wonderful yet simple sentence. Approach everybody as if they're fragile, no matter what impression that they're giving you, and
yes.
you get the best answer from people like that.
Your results may change in the most positive light, maybe not immediately, but over time. Whereas the other person may see that this person is no longer argumentative with me, or no longer treating me or talking to me or talking down to me, and they may change towards you automatically after thinking that this person has changed towards me. And inshallah ta'ala, that may open up a door or an avenue for better conversation, inshallah ta'ala,
Inshallah.
which may
I think
allow your relationship to flourish, inshallah.
I hope if we we continue to do these lives to talk, to cover these questions as openly as we have without batting
No,
people
very much
away,
so.
because a lot of things I've seen, people just get brushed over. And I
Very much
like
so.
that we've touched this in depth, and I hope she feels like we've paid a relevant amount of attention to her question.
Inshallah ta'ala.
Alhamdulillah. No, I think, and again, we're moving into final thoughts as we approach
Yes,
the hour mark. But inshallah, we will have these power packed, segments or hours that we're doing, because I think there's so much to cover.
there is.
Communication with parents in itself is a whole topic.
That's the season.
Massive topic.
you know,
Massive
you,
topic, brother.
you know,
Massive topic.
even what we've just touched on, how to approach your partner with
Yes,
these things, also how they receive it. From a male perspective, how do I receive my partner's, my wife's emotions? How am I accountable for those also? So
very
again,
much
that's
so.
something we can touch on next time. But again, brother and sister, if we could just get your final thoughts. But I really feel that next week we could run this back again.
Inshallah ta'ala.
And hopefully there'll be new sets of topics and aspects that we'll be able to look at
100%
as we carry
inshallah
on with
ta'ala.
this, inshallah.
I think it's
So,
quite important that we've opened up a platform here. And this platform, I pray to Allah that He allows the platform to grow with more people that come on board with us. And inshallah ta'ala, so we can discuss these matters quite nicely, openly, and respectfully. And I hope and pray that more people start asking us questions so we can try and assist them. And if we don't have the answers, people, please remember, if we don't have the answers, we'll tell you directly that we'll get the answer for you. And inshallah ta'ala, we will try and come back to you again in the following week with some answers for you. So inshallah ta'ala. Sister Fatima?
Totally agree to these kind of social gatherings is that essentially what we're sharing is opinions. We're
Yes,
sharing viewpoints. And I think because the panel in this case, and I think other times is majority Muslim, we come with a certain angle on things. But when it comes to the facts and figures, of course, if we need to, we will go away and figure that out. But other than that, you are just asking human beings for their view and their thought process. The
And
action that you
experiences.
guys take, yeah, and the
Yeah,
experience. But the action that is taken, that's required to have a lot of self and inner reflection. But I hope our words help you to get to that point of reflection, inshallah.
inshallah ta'ala. And
Inshallah.
if I may just have a few words, brother. Sorry,
Absolutely.
just a few
Sorry.
words. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever's listening, I just want to reiterate, please, please, please respect your parents as much as possible. No way, in any way, shape, or form, have we ever mentioned in this conversation to disrespect your parents, to go against your parents in any way. Your parents are your parents, and we have been taught as Muslims and as religious people, whether you are from a Christian religion or a Judaic religion, we are all shown to respect our parents. And please, all of us, we must respect our parents first, and because they are important factors in our life. Now, and we must nurture that in a way where we allow them to start to understand us, who we are as people, as individuals. Yes, we might be their children, but Allah has made all of us individual people who are different to everybody. We may have certain things, you may have certain things. Everyone is different to each other. So please respect your parents, respect each other. If you are married, respect your spouses and speak to each other with total respect. Even if somebody says something to you within your marriage that you do not like and you dislike, don't retaliate with an answer with which can become a conflicting answer. Stand back and be silent and be quiet. Absorb what that person has said and maybe come to that conversation at a later stage. And inshallah ta'ala discuss it in respect when the mood is in a better light, you know. And I think these little things, we can make big differences. And and I speak from experience. You know, I'm not speaking as if I'm a professional. I'm not. I am speaking through pure experience that I have learned that if we speak as individuals with respect to each other, and especially our spouses and our parents, believe me, the love automatically changes as you develop and as your relationship develops. And that's what needs to happen in your relationships with your parents and your spouses and your children, that you need to allow that development process to take place, but it needs to take place in respect, not dictatorships and not argumentative action. It is all respect, calm discussions. And if you feel at any point that it's going towards an argument, tell each other, stop. Let's stop. It's going in the wrong direction. We can pick this up at a later stage when we've calmed down a bit and come back to it. Because these are things that we are taught. You know, even Islam teaches us, Rasulullah tells us very clearly, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam teaches us that if you feel that if you are to open your mouth and it's going in the wrong direction, rather stay quiet. He tells us very clearly, stay quiet. Don't say anything. So, inshallah ta'ala, I hope and pray that whatever we've discussed today has opened a few more people's minds. And inshallah ta'ala, in our next podcast, I pray that more people come on board with more questions. And inshallah ta'ala, I hope and pray that we can help you, guide you through our experiences and our opinions, inshallah. Jazakallah, brother.
Alhamdulillah, that was great. So, brothers and sisters, until the next time, we will be having a stream tomorrow with Brother Abdullah. So, keep up on the community posts. And again, we'll be announcing on Twitter and all social media. But again, from us in the panel, myself, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And
Wa
we'll
alaikum
catch you on the
assalam
next
and
one.
salamu alaikum to everybody, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakallah. Sister Fatima, assalamu alaikum.